have a sore throat. This is part 2 of a 2-part series I did on the first week of Drawcember. So if you haven't watched the first video, I strongly suggest it because this video will not make nearly as much sense to you. I finally finished my drawing from yesterday and it's 11 AM. Despite using my self-discipline and going to bed on time, for some reason I just could not fall asleep for the longest time. It almost just would have been more worth my time if I had just finished the drawing, but, you know, how was I supposed to know that? Part of me does suspect that doing art right before my bedtime's maybe partly the culprit for this. Chances of me being really tired today are pretty high. I'm just hoping I can put out a drawing really quick. I have a hopefully simple idea. Things aren't always as simple as I think they'll be. Foreshadowing. I don't think I've ever really explained to you why perfectionism is my arch nemesis. It's time for a little bit of backstory. When I was a little girl, I had this dream. At one point in it, this girl showed up with this very fancy floor-length ballroom dress, and I think it was probably blue. Like, I can still envision it in my head, though to be honest, I'm not really sure that's the one I dreamt of, because it's been probably over 10 years. I remember waking up from that dream, and I was just so excited about it. Like, I had to draw it out. I had to be able to see it in front of my very eyes, and it just seemed so vivid in my head that it just seemed like, of course I'm going to be able to draw this. Of course, realistically speaking, I knew that 9-year-old me was not going to be able to draw it exactly how I saw in my brain. But I still tried. I tried for like 2 seconds and immediately became frustrated and realized, ugh, I'm just not going to be able to do this. This is turning out terrible already. Like, why do I even bother? And basically every time I did art, a lot of the time it just kind of ended in frustration. Frustration due to perfectionism, of course. So I just ended up avoiding art a lot. Perfectionism is a lot more than just having high standards. The way I see it is being really just discontent if anything is anything other than perfect. And of course, that's just an unattainable goal. And unattainable goals lead to frustration and general lack of growth, among other things. I find perfectionism, at least in me, has 2 different tendencies. Either I don't do something at all because I'm afraid of messing up, or I do something and I obsess so much over the quality, even if I don't have the time for it, even if I don't have the skills for it, even if that means just pushing myself in stupid ways, like in illustrations. So I've been trying to do this wolf illustration. When I pictured it in my head, I only saw a wolf, but I imagined that there would be something else going on in the illustration. But the thing is, I have no idea what that other element could really be, and I really do not want to spend another 3 hours trying to figure that out for something that was supposed to take the shortest possible amount of time. I'm just gonna take what I have here and just run with it from there. Doing that, it's very risky business. If you don't have a reference photo to follow, then you have to figure all of these things out by yourself, and you're just left with your own skills and your own knowledge. And sometimes that's just not enough. I don't know how well you can tell, but doing this and just jumping into the drawing, it was pretty painful, honestly. But looking back now, I just really can see how big a step that was for me. And I know I said last video that in the past, I didn't do any planning, I just plopped things on. So you might think, okay, like clearly you don't have much of a problem jumping in other times, why is this such a big deal now? Well, like I said earlier, I usually either react to perfectionism by not doing something or just overthinking it. But sometimes it's like, well, I don't want my perfectionistic self getting in the way and me really overthinking this project, so I'm just gonna avoid all that. And that was all fine and dandy when I'm just basically following a reference photo. But when you're trying to make your own compositions, that's a lot more risky. And you can't afford to just avoid your problems in this area. So, it's a 6. It's been a while since I updated you. And exactly what I was afraid of happening happened. I've been finishing the drawing from the day before in the morning. Oh, I'm really, really trying to get this quickly finished before 9:30. It's 9:20 right now, and I have this much done. So hopefully that's doable. It's just, I've been really good with finishing the drawing from the day before and planning things out as soon as possible in the day. That's not the problem. It's just that with all of the other stuff that I have to be doing, it's really slow going. Even if I do simple things, I still do have to do a lot of composition planning. Today was really, really good. I did these 2 thumbnails right here. That's literally all I did, and I was like, you know what, I could go on, but really, I was so busy today. I was just like, okay, this is good. I like what I have here. I'm just gonna go with it. This is when I really started to get rid of the perfectionism in a big way, because earlier in the challenge, I would kind of force myself to do as many thumbnails as possible, and I think a lot of that is going back to my old problem I had with planning. And you can see me doing that a bit. For example, in day 3, where I did these 2 thumbnails, even though I didn't really need to do them and I didn't really want to do them either. That's really the beautiful thing about doing a daily challenge like this. It kind of forces you to let go of the unnecessary things. I mean, I said with Drawcember I, I kind of just had to jump into the thing. But as you can see here, I did spend a lot of time on the thumbnailing process. Maybe for this one, it wasn't too much, but I think it just shows kind of where I was mentally still, but no longer. I had that all figured out by 11 o'clock. Unfortunately, I basically haven't been able to work on it until 8:30 in the evening. I was just really trying to edit my Inktober video. I had to film footage for that. I had to edit it. I accidentally deleted like half of the footage. I managed to retrieve that, thankfully, because I was using Dropbox. I had to wait for the restored version to sync up with the old deleted version. I don't know. Weird things happen. Weird things happened is code for I don't understand technology. Just so you know. And that just took forever, and then the rendering took forever, and I had no footage space, and footage space is just my worst enemy. Yeah, it was a bit of a rough day. Hello, it is me from the future/present, and I just wanted to celebrate the fact that, look, I have footage space. This little black disc has upgraded me from 120 gigabytes to 1 whole terabyte. So I'm basically set for life, and it is just the best thing ever. It feels kind of like I'm failing in a sense. Like, I really wanted this to be going better, to be going more smoothly, but honestly, it's just not really anything I can control. I've just finished it. Ta-da! Oh, it's still wet. I'm getting marker ink on my hands. It is a little bit past my bedtime. My bedtime. It is actually my bedtime. I don't know why I'm doing air quotes, but it's just 9:36, so I let myself have a pass because I was just too close to being done to just like stop. I am free until tomorrow, in which case I have to make another one and I have to get it done before nighttime, hopefully. But so far, so good. It's my brother's 5th birthday today, and boy, do I have a packed day. Obviously, I have to do Drawcember. I have a board game I'm gonna play with my siblings.
You had spied a merman, attacked me an innocent victim. You follow the merman back to his surface lair and make note of the location so you can direct the city guard. Destiny 1, quick thinking.
Then we're gonna do a marker party. Then I'm going to go swimming. And then, of course, we're gonna have cake and birthday presents and supper. And I have to write an article and also make a card for my brother. Thankfully, I don't really have to worry about Drawcember because when I do my marker party with my little brother, that's when I'm gonna be doing it. But unfortunately for you, you're not gonna see that drawing. I'm doing an entirely separate video for that. I'm a little more concerned for all my other projects though, because with all the crazy partying, I don't know how productive I'm going to be in those areas. Well, the 7th has come and gone. It was a good day. I got the drawing done the earliest I've ever gotten it done. I think I even managed to squish in all those things just barely. Today, unfortunately, is not looking so perfect. Unfortunately, it's just one of those days where I feel very unmotivated. There's nothing I can really do about that other than just force myself to just start. You know what? This is just something that happens every single art challenge, no matter what you do. But it's on days like this that it matters the most. Because if I start procrastinating now and I leave it till nighttime again and I have to finish it next morning, then I'm back into that cycle that I just broke. Then it is going to be a lot harder to keep up motivation and keep carrying on these healthy habits. So I'm really trying to just do it. As far as what I'm actually gonna draw today, that was another thing that making me feel like procrastinating, is just that I don't have an idea that I really want to do. So I think I'm just gonna stick with doing another flower drawing, because I can work on that without thinking quite so hard. I am gonna try to make my own little flower arrangement for this like I did last time. Even with that, it's still going to be a lot easier to do it compared to doing, say, one of my animal drawings. I can just kind of casually do it. Plus, I used to work at a flower shop, so I've done a little bit of flower arranging in my time, so I'm a pro. Okay, I didn't actually really do all that much arranging, but still. You know, in some ways it feels kind of silly that I'm making all of these videos dedicated to getting over perfectionism. And the reason why it feels kind of silly to me is because whenever I've been doing art challenges, I've always had it at the forefront of my mind that this is just something I'm doing for fun. Like, it doesn't really matter if I go over the day, or I miss a day, or I make art that, you know, I'm not the most happy with. And I've pretty much put those ideas into practice. I have had goals, but the goals I had, they were never really very serious. In fact, I even had a whole art challenge where the last 3 days, because a situation came up and I was like, okay, I don't really need the extra pressure, so I just let go of them, and I hardly even remember the fact that I did it because it was just such a, you know, a little decision. Illustrations really was the one time that this ever cropped up, and a lot of that just had to do with the fact that it was very poor planning on my part. But I've definitely seen this problem pop up in other areas, specifically with taking too much on and then just not really knowing how to let go of things when I do take on too much. And when the whole situation with illustrations happened, I was like, okay, this maybe is a bit of a bigger problem than I thought. It's just that in situations I've encountered it before, it just hasn't been such a big thing. That definitely does not mean that it's not going to be a bigger problem in the future if I don't address it now. So I figured, why not? Why not address it in this way, which is a lot, you know, it's a lot more fun because it's in the form of an art challenge. It's not really silly that I'm making such a big deal out of this. I didn't end up making a composition for the last drawing that you see here. I realized as I was working on it and I still was feeling just as unmotivated that it probably would just be best if I didn't, you know, push myself too hard. And even though I wasn't planning on heavily basing my art on reference photos for this challenge, I ended up doing that using a reference photo I'd taken several years ago and following that. And I think this is a good reflection of how Drawcember ended up going and kind of what I was aiming for all along. The problem with illustrations was that I just put so much pressure on myself, and the thing with Inktober is that I just had no pressure at all, and Drawcember was really trying to figure out the good mix between the two. You know, I think I accomplished this in Drawcember, which, you know, was a little unpleasant at times with this drawing. I was feeling so unmotivated, I honestly didn't really care. But for a lot of the other drawings, I did things that I kind of didn't want to do. I didn't want to push the drawings till the next morning and finish them then. I would have much rather stayed up and worked on them late into the night. That's a lot more comfortable to me, but that's kind of what defeating your arch nemesis feels like. It's not really comfortable. Fixing things is not very comfortable, but it's good to do, yeah. But yeah, I think Drawcember overall was very successful. Of course, there were a lot of road bumps. There's a lot of things that if I did this challenge again, I would do differently. I don't want to finish the drawing from the day before in the morning, but you know, these things, they're always going to be like slightly unpredictable no matter how you go about it. And that's kind of why I need to get rid of this perfectionism thing. It's because it's not helpful. It's not helpful at all. This is the last video of this style that I'm going to be making on Drawcember. I'm going to be having a few more videos about it, but it's not really centered around the fact that it's Drawcember. It's more about the artwork. So stay tuned for those ones. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and tell me, do you have problems with perfectionism, and how has that manifested itself in your life? Because I'm sure it's different for everyone. Or maybe you're just one of the lucky ones and you just don't have problems with being a perfectionist at all. And I will see you at some point in the future. Bye.